Good day, everyone. Eric from HELPS, law firm for seniors and disabled persons, talking to you today on February 10th, 2026. Good to have you here. My name's Eric, attorney now for 48 years, founder of HELPS. HELPS is a national law firm. What we do is we represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay in order to stop debt collector harassment. And so the title for today is going to be, what age is income protected from debt collectors? Okay. And I'll just give an example. I got off the phone not very long ago, 20 minutes ago, with a really sweet lady from Arizona. And I think she was 91 years old. Maybe she was 93. I can't remember. She was over 90. She had a judgment for an old debt, and then she was threatened by a lawsuit from, could have been Capital One, I think. Her income was a little bit over $2,000 in Social Security, and she needed every penny of that. And she really didn't know what to do. Wasn't terribly internet familiar, but had seen our YouTube videos and been on our webpage. And explained what HELPS does. I told her what I explained went over her financial situation. She's renting where she lives, not buying a car. All her income is Social Security. She has one bank account. I explained to her that even if someone were to sue her, that bank account to which her Social Security goes is protected automatically by her bank up to twice the amount of Social Security she gets each month. So she was relieved to hear that. Okay. And I said, they can't do anything to you. And then if she doesn't want to be harassed by the creditors anymore, she could enroll in HELPS. She decided to do that. She didn't really have an email address, but her partner did. And so we emailed her confirmation she was enrolled with HELPS. We told her how to get us the creditors. She could text it, fax it, email it, or mail it to us. And I said, in your case, you can call us on the phone. We'll just take it over the phone. She's had a couple of them. And she's over 90, and she's not computer savvy. We want to make it easy for people. We're not here to cause people difficulty. And then I really emphasized to her that if she ever had a question or if she was ever worried or concerned, she could always pick up the phone and call us, no matter how often. And so she was in her 90s. Now, I would say the same thing to someone who was in their 50s or 40s or 30s that were getting Social Security disability or Social Security of any form. Your income is protected not based on your age, but based on your source of income. Now, it just so happens that most of our clients are elderly, but it doesn't matter how old you are. If your income is Social Security or something like that, like a retirement, it's protected. It can't be taken. So that's what we do. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat feature, and I'll address them there. Eric, should I worry about a 1099-C form in the mail? Probably not. If your only income is Social Security, you're not required to file tax returns. You shouldn't really worry about it. IRS isn't going to follow up on it. They're not going to do anything. And if they did, you could get currently not collectible status with the IRS, but they're not going to go that far. I mean, you could do that. Or if you're required to file tax returns, if you're insolvent, which means if your debt exceeds your assets, you can file Form 982. There'll be no tax. So don't worry about a 1099-C. Now, if you have a whole lot of money and a whole lot of debt, but you have a whole lot of income, then it could be an issue. But our clients aren't in that situation. But you can always call and talk to us. So you shouldn't worry about a 1099-C. Okay. Right. 90-year-olds shouldn't be worried about debt. But I'd say the same thing for 80-year-olds and 70-year-olds, 60-year-olds. You shouldn't worry about debt. Okay. If your income is lower and you can't afford to pay it, lawmakers have put in effect laws that protect your income, can't be taken from you, even if you're sued, protect your bank account. And part of the provision is you're represented by an attorney. They can't bother you. They have to deal with us, not you. And that's what HELPS does. I received, let's see, Bonnie says, I received the court summons for one of my debts, but I have a couple of other credit cards I owe on. Would HELPS take care of all those or just some? No, everything. Now, one of the things we ask you when you enroll in HELPS, or when we question you, do you have a credit card? And I already asked this someone earlier this morning. Do you have a credit card with a smaller balance or nothing is owed that you still want to keep? And the person's answer was yeah. They owed about $1,000 on it. They were paying $100 a month, and they could afford it. Yeah, and as long as that credit card isn't backed by a bank with whom you're not going to pay the debt, no reason why you wouldn't be able to keep that credit card. So yeah, you should be able to keep that credit card, even though you've been sued. Okay, don't need to worry. But if you do worry, you call us on the phone. That's what HELPS us for. You call as often as you need to. Okay, this person, let's read this one here. The way this works, you can type your questions on the comments, or I have a lot of things that I've written out where people have talked to us the last couple days, or yesterday, or usually just overnight. I received a summons to appear in court regarding Capital One and Discover merger. This is in Denver, Colorado, in the amount of $5,500. I also have a couple of other debts to Synchrony Bank and Canvas Credit Union being handled by some law firm. I would appreciate your help addressing this summons and other related matters. I'm 71 years old, retired, and disabled with Medicaid in the status of elderly, blind, and disabled. Nothing to worry about. This is the kind of person we help. You don't have to be blind or disabled. All you have to be is getting Social Security or pension, disability, or VA benefit, regardless of what your age. But they don't need to worry about. So if you get sued, what happens is you get a copy of the lawsuit to us. We usually need the first 2 or 3 pages. And we're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued you. We're going to let the attorney know that your income is protected. You can't afford to pay the debt. And we're also going to explain to the attorney how your bank account is protected. Remember, twice the amount of your federal benefits deposited in your bank account is automatically protected by your bank from garnish, regardless of what other funds are in there. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, it's still protected, just not automatically. Paperwork would have to be filed to get that released. We help people do that, but fortunately, we don't have to do that very often because people are really good about keeping the balance in their account less than twice the amount of their Social Security. So you don't need to worry about Capital One suing you, or Synchrony Bank, or the credit union. You're not going to have to go to court, and you're going to be fine. Nothing to worry about. Okay? This person contacts us from Florida. I just started my pension in August of 2025. My wife and I live in Fort Myers and owned a business for many years before we were forced to close in 2024. The business left us with a lot of personal debt, especially after going through the COVID years and a Hurricane Ian that destroyed much of our area. We now have nothing but a small manufactured home and one vehicle, and are struggling to pay our basic bills on my pension. My wife begins her Social Security this year, and I will at the end of this year. We are being harassed by debt collectors, and both are being sued by Velocity Investments. We thought we would need to file for bankruptcy, but saw your YouTube video. We would like to sign up for your help, as there is no way we have the money to pay any of these creditors while we're struggling to pay our basic bills to live. Yeah, that's what we do. Before HELPS was started, I probably filed 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies. And if you've been listening to me a while, you know the story. I started practice in 1978. filed my first bankruptcy within 6 months. And in 1986, I did nothing but bankruptcy. I just gave the rest of my practice away and started a large bankruptcy firm that is was very successful and still is very successful, run by my younger brother. And in fact, they file almost a quarter of all the bankruptcies in the state where they practice, and a couple other states they file a lot of there too. But anyway, seniors would come to me for bankruptcy, and I'd tell them, you don't need to file bankruptcy. A lot of them couldn't afford to file bankruptcy. Why didn't they need to file bankruptcy? Because I explained how their income was protected, and their assets. No one would take. It wasn't a problem with seniors losing their assets, even if they had. See, every state has a certain amount of equity that you can have in a home or other car and stuff like that. But even if you have uh, even if you have assets over and above the exemption for your state, it's not the practice of consumer creditors to come if they get a judgment to go after your assets. They simply don't do that. So I need to sign back in here. Hold on a second here. I get irritated when I have to do this. There we go. So finally, in 2012, HELPS was started. I realized that there was a federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that provided if a person was represented by an attorney, collectors would have to leave them alone. And these seniors that couldn't afford to file bankruptcy didn't need to file bankruptcy. Um, if I sent them away and told them you don't need to file bankruptcy, creditors could call and make their lives miserable. So HELPS was started so we could help those seniors that didn't need to file bankruptcy, couldn't afford to file bankruptcy. There was no reason to file bankruptcy, but to keep the creditors off their back, keep them off their back. And so that's what we do. So this couple in Florida, we're going to be able to help them. They don't need to file bankruptcy. They're going to be fine. Okay, well, they're going to give us the creditors they owe money to. We're going to send out a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave them alone, and then they're going to be our clients literally forever. So if they ever have a question or concern, they can always call if they have questions. Okay. So I hope I haven't missed anyone. Okay. Remember's partner received a judgment yesterday from Capital One along with fact information sheet. Do we need to fill that out? We have no assets, but he has a small 1099. Oh yes, income from DoorDash. No one's going to take the DoorDash money. Yeah, you can fill that out. Some states have forms that state law allows a creditor that gets a judgment to give them, and creditors in Florida that sue and get judgments take advantage of that fact information sheet. Whoever was the one that created that form was an idiot because it asked maybe a couple dozen questions and maybe only 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of them apply to someone. And one of the questions they ask, they want to know all the children's names and addresses and phone numbers as though that's any of their business. So you can fill it out. There's nothing they can do. We help our clients fill it out. We have an email that explains how to fill it out. But you can fill it out because you're required to do it. But it shouldn't cause any problem. Just you want to make sure if someone has a judgment that you keep the balance in your bank account less than twice the amount of your Social Security, okay, or a federal benefit, okay. So here's one. Person says, I went through JD Wentworth for restructuring of debts. They have removed with creditors, but the $595 a month payment is something I can't live on. Well, I can tell you this. Uh, Let me show you something. I typed in, this is so typical, and I get very frustrated. I typed in JD Wentworth senior debt. And let me show you what I found. So JD Wentworth is an old company. They filed bankruptcy a few years ago and then they restructured. They're trying to find out new different ways of making money. One of their new ways is to try to, help people with debt issues. So here's an article from September 18th, 2024, not that long ago. What is senior debt? Let's talk about something that's been weighing on the minds of many older adults lately, debt. Okay, and they talk about different types of debt. Why is senior debt an issue? What can seniors do about it? Listen to what they say. Budgeting and financial planning, debt consolidation. That's what JD Wentworth does. Reverse mortgage. Um, you wouldn't use a reverse mortgage to pay your old debt. That money's protected, and when you use it to pay your debt, then your nest egg is gone. Okay, negotiating with creditors, credit counseling, bankruptcy, seeking family help, downsizing, part-time work. Yeah, a lot of seniors can't do part-time work. They don't need to see it, but nowhere in this article. Here it is. The bottom line. Nowhere in this article. And then what's the article about? What is senior debt? Trying to help people with senior debt. Nowhere in the article does it make one mention of the fact that your Social Security is protected. So is your pension. So your retirement income. It doesn't say anything about there's a way to prevent the creditors from harassing you. No. If they were to tell you that, you would know that you didn't need their help and you wouldn't enroll with these companies. And they're all the same. Few exceptions. They don't tell seniors that their income is protected. Instead, they steer them to debt management or debt settlement, putting some seniors making payments, put them into utter poverty, making payments they simply can't afford. And I get really frustrated because I talk to people who call us on the phone. They've been enrolled with companies like this person, you know, over $500 a month for the last couple of years. Okay. Okay. Seems like Capital One is sue happy more than any other creditor. Well, Capital One bought Discover, and Discover used to be sue happy, so Capital One has joined the crew. Yeah, Capital One sues more than anyone else. That's true. Now, does that mean you should pay Capital One? I say no. If you don't have to pay them, don't pay them. All you do is encourage them to keep suing. Why do they sue? Well, they've just made that decision. They've decided they want to get a reputation for suing everyone. Therefore, people would choose to keep paying them. So that's what they do. Okay. So I recently moved from one county to another in the same state. After I left my old address, my landlord advised me that a sheriff had left his card on the door. The card was tossed. Helps has my debtors. What do I do? Nothing. It's up to them to find out where you're at and serve you with a summons. But if you're served with a summons, you're going to get a copy to us. We're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued you. You're not going to need to go to court. You're not going to need to worry about it. But you don't need to make it easy on them. You don't need to call up the sheriff and tell them where you're at. No. I had a person years ago, Mr. Olsen, I live down this long driveway and my gate is locked. And the sheriff calls me and he says he's got legal papers to serve on me. Do I need to go down and pick up the papers from the sheriff? I said, no, you don't need to do that. You don't need to answer the door. It doesn't hurt if you do. You can't do anything to you, but you don't need to make it easy on them. Remember, uh, process servers get paid if they serve you. Exception is the sheriff's office. They get paid no matter what, but they try to serve you. But you don't need to. You don't need to make it easy on them. Okay. Um, yeah. If you've got a Capital One credit card and you're current on it, no reason why you shouldn't keep it. You bet. Uh, David asks, I have a Social Security plus a state pension. Is my state pension protected as well? Yeah. Okay. So here's the rule. Social Security is protected. Pensions are protected under a law called ERISA, Employment Retirement Income Act of 1974. Not all pensions are protected under ERISA. And if it's not protected under ERISA, then there will be a state law that protects your pension from garnishment in the event that someone were to sue you and get a judgment. In 48 years of practice, I've never had anyone come to me and been able to determine that their pension has been garnished or someone's been able to take it for a debt. Um, okay, so Canadian says, Eric, the good question is, you can't get water out of a turnip or a stone. You're right. I have to wonder, is it even profitable for them to keep suing? Some just love torturing seniors. Well, what they do is they count on you not knowing your rights. Okay, a lot of you listening to me, or some of you, have never heard what I'm talking about. Like you go to that J.D. Wentworth website, you would have never realized that your income was protected. They never mention it. They don't do it. So yeah, if you know your rights, then yeah, it doesn't make. But they don't, and they're not obligated to tell you that your income is protected. When a debt collector calls you, the only thing they have to say is any information we use is going to be used for the purpose of collecting a debt. They don't have to say, well, we can't touch your Social Security. They're not going to do that. Just a second here. They're not going to do that. Um, yeah, Roth IRAs are protected too. Okay. Will they try to serve my daughter who lives in the same state? I used to live with her. Nah. I mean, they could. Technically, unless you live with her, then that's not proper service. But you know, don't worry about that. I mean, even if someone were to sue you and get a judgment, if your income, Social Security, or pension is protected, you don't need to worry about the debt, right? I'm working DoorDash to survive. Is that self-employment income in jeopardy? I'm making less than 2 times the amount of my. The way I understand DoorDash is you get paid pretty much immediately when you do the work, right? You're self-employed. You do the work, you get paid. It goes on a card. So I suppose it's technically possible for the garnish them DoorDash, but I've never seen it happen. And if they were, they would just garnish the immediate money. I wouldn't worry about that. We don't run into a problem with people that are on this gig economy that are doing a Uber or DoorDash or these kind of businesses, self-employment, losing their money. Yeah. Make your home environmentally hostile. Court dismissed the case from Discover because the server said I had too many plants, so it wasn't served. I think a couple of weeks ago, the guy said the sheriffs wouldn't serve it because it was I forget the word he uses, a dangerous area. So I don't know. So no, but it doesn't matter. Uh, well, okay, you deposit in your bank account to pay your bills. Remember your bank account. If someone, if no one can touch your bank account unless number one, they sue you and get a judgment, and then number two, they have to know where you bank, which is not that easy to find out. And then if they serve it on your bank examine your account, and if money came from a federal source like Social Security, they take the amount you got twice the amount you get each month, or the amount you got within the last 90 days or the last 60 days, and protect that from garnishment automatically, even if there's other money in the bank account. So you don't need to worry about losing your DoorDash money. My friend has a house paid for and has a bill he can't handle. Can I handle the credit card payment? Can you help? He wants to keep the. You have to call and talk to us about that. I'm not sure about the question. Yeah, there's no taxes on Social Security. Okay. Person contacts us from California. My bank, Pacific Premier, merged with Columbia. Columbia did not honor a payment threshold established with Pacific Premier, and all will establish my account with overdraft protection, which I did not have, and I did not request nor approve. As a result, my account balance is a negative $1,500 and will consume nearly my entirety of my Social Security direct deposit. I've been locked out of my account. I've so apparently for some reason they got a NSF account. The question is, can their bank, Columbia Bank, take their money from their Social Security to cover the uh, the NSF amount in the bank? And the answer is yes, they can. The law allows them to do that. They can't take money you owe them for a debt you owe the bank for a loan, or like a credit card, but not for a NSF in your bank account. It says I've recently been in contact with Columbia Bank Customer Service Department as well as online support, and they maintain position that I have no threshold established for creditor charges, uh, and that my account I have no money and will not be able to meet basic needs. Can you help? I've submitted a direct deposit change request to Social Security, which will not go effect until April. Sometimes you can contact the bank and they'll agree to not to only take part of the money out for the NSF charge. We'll talk to this person, but the bank is within their rights to do this. My mom had an American Express card where she owed 23,000. It was under her name only. We did debt consolidation until I learned this stuff from you about how they cannot take my mother's income. Then they wrote to ask for my dad's death certificate, who passed last year, to see if he could pay her debt. It's actually a card they shared, but my mother's name was on it. Once I sent them dad's death certificate, they dropped the case entirely. Thanks, Eric. You bet. Now, technically, they could still sue your mom, but they can't collect from her. But if you do get sued, you remember, if it helps, you get us a copy of the lawsuit. We send a cease and desist. We contact the attorney. Not going to have to go to court. The whole purpose of helps. Well, there's a lot of whole purposes of helps, but one of the main purposes of helps is that we represent you ongoing, not just one time. Most of the times when you get an attorney, it's like he does a specific thing for you. He writes a letter, he does this thing or that thing, and then he's done. With HELPS, you're our client literally forever. So if you get a new debt collection notice from a new debt collector, you get that to us. The fees for HELPS are minimal. The most a person would pay would be $40 for 24 months, $20 for 24 months, and then free thereafter. Um, but depending on your income and circumstances, it could be as low as $20 for 24 months, $10 for 24 months, free thereafter. Um, so yeah, it's affordable. We don't want you to worry. And then some people get our help for free. Free. We don't turn anyone away that needs the help that we provide. Person contacts us from Florida. I moved from Florida to Texas in November of 2022. In December of 23, I filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. I have an old account since 2021 on PayPal. I found a lot of fraud involved in this. Someone is now knocking on my door and following me home. I've been getting advertisements from attorneys saying that they saw it on the net. Sometimes bankruptcy attorneys subscribe to a service that lets them know if someone's been sued, and then they'll send a letter to that person advertising bankruptcy services. That's why they're getting these advertisements. They've been sued. Um, I was I was taken to small claims court. I do not know about this. I'm ready to call the police from aggravation since I'm 80 years old and live alone. This morning I went out a couple of seconds to wipe off the car and came inside. 5 minutes later, knocking, banging, ringing the doorbell. See, a process server, a private process server, he gets paid when he serves you with the papers. So unless he serves you, he doesn't get paid. So they have an incentive to get you served. So that might be a reason why they're knocking on the door, getting you to open up so they can hand them to you. I want to know my rights. If this is true, hopefully it's not a stalker. Nah, that's someone suing you. Please call me. I have lots of security on my phone. Hope you can get through. Okay, I'll hope we can get through too. We can get through too. Okay. The guy's in his 80s. He doesn't need to worry. His income's protected. If he's been sued, he doesn't need to defend the lawsuit. He could if he wanted to, but we don't do that. And he couldn't afford an attorney to do it anyway. If they can get a judgment, they're not going to touch his income, his assets. He's going to be fine. Doesn't need to worry. Okay? Sometimes people call us and they do have a defense for the lawsuit for whatever reason, but they're not in the position to defend themselves. And a lot of times they really don't need to do that. They can if they want, but they don't need to because if the creditor gets a judgment, they can't collect from them anyway. Would it be wise to apply, to get redo my HELOC, home equity line of credit, to pay off $20,000 in credit card debt that would raise my home equity line of credit monthly payment, but get rid of the credit card payment? Um, you could envision a circumstances where that could make sense, maybe based on how much is owed on the home and how much your income is and your ability to make a payment. But a lot of reasons that might not be a wise idea. You can always call and talk to us. Okay? Depends on the circumstances, but I would guess a majority of the time that might not make sense. Well, why might it not make sense? Well, depending on how much equity you have in your home, your equity is protected under the state homestead laws, and some homestead laws have exemptions higher than others. And so if you incur a mortgage debt, which a HELOC is, then that decreases the amount of equity in your home that's protected. That's kind of your nest egg. Um, Person contacts us from Ohio. My name is, and I just received a letter from Midland Credit Management for debt I do owe in the amount of $3,100. I got into debt because I'm disabled with and just got diagnosed with a type of cancer. Dealing with that uh, because I'm receiving 1,000 in combined Social Security, disability, and supplemental Social Security income. How do I respond to this debt collection letter? I have until March 11th to respond. I also have 2 other credit cards accounts that were closed, but I have yet to receive the collection letters for those 2 credit cards. What do I do? Do I respond to the collection letters? Please help. You don't need to respond to them. They can't do anything to you. Your only income is a little bit over $1,000 in Social Security. If they were to sue you and get a judgment, remember your bank account is protected. They can't garnish your Social Security. You're fine. If you want our help, you could enroll in help so they can't bother you anymore. They have to communicate with us. Okay? Don't need to worry. Person asks, if my credit cards are through my bank, it happens to be Wells Fargo, and if I quit paying on my credit cards, will they make me close out my checking account and my savings, which only has $500 in it anyway? How will it affect my bank account if I stop paying on the credit cards? Uh, well, the rule is this. Um, a bank cannot offset money out of your bank account to pay a debt you owe the bank if the only money going into your bank account is Social Security, unless you gave them permission to do that. Now, if it's with a credit union, whether you realize it or not, you gave them permission to do that. So if you're not going to pay a credit union, you want to close that out and have your Social Security go to a bank or another credit union where you don't owe any money. Now, technically, if the person had a savings account, the bank could offset money out of the savings account. Wells Fargo could, because their Social Security gets deposited into the checking account, likely. But normally, you wouldn't have to have it taken out. I mean, you wouldn't have to um, change to a different bank if you're not going to pay a bank. You can usually keep the same bank. Person asks, I'm wondering if I can't pay my credit card debt of $15,000. Will it jeopardize my low income housing? I'm 77 years old, living off a Social Security retirement check of $1,250 a month. No. Yeah, if you don't pay your credit card debt, it's not going to affect your low income senior housing. Just you got to make your housing payment, your rent payment, obviously, which is usually about a quarter to a third of what your income is. Pay that, but you don't need to pay the 15,000 in credit card debt, and it's not going to affect your rental where you live. I'm sorry, I want to yawn. Okay, person contacts us from California. We spoke with the son. that the parent gets about $1,900 in Social Security and a pension of $450. Says he's interested in services with HELPS. They've done their research and watched some videos. They're unsure about the cost. We go over that with people, and I've already explained that to you. Mom gave the son permission to talk with us and enroll her. She's renting a room from her son. Is this a problem? No. So we would have gotten permission from the mom to talk to the son. We went over what we did and how our bank account is protected. We sent a bunch of emails on different things. A general email, one that says, one that talks about YouTube Live that we're doing today, one about who can help. Okay, and then they called again on February 5th. They didn't get the email, so it looks like we resent them. And it looks like they enrolled in HELPS yesterday. I'm glad they found out about us. And I'm glad that son was watching out for mom and protecting her. You know, you can always call with someone else if you need to. If you're a senior and you want to call with one of the kids, you can do that. Or if you're a family member watching out for a parent or a grandparent or someone else in your family, we'll always talk to you, go over this with you. Don't want you to worry. Person contacts us from New York. They get about 850 and 64 years old. They get 850 in Social Security and 450 in a pension. $1,300. They have credit card debt. They're with debt consolidation. Perfect example. They're paying $400 a month. 400 out of their 12, their $1,300 income. And the name of the company was Beyond Finance. We talked to them about how they could stop paying Beyond Finance. Could I stop paying the debt consolidation company? Yes! Exclamation mark. If you're signed up with a debt management or debt consolidation company, you've been listening to me and you realize your income is protected, and you were never told that your income was protected when you enrolled with them, you were being scammed. They weren't giving you complete information because they wanted to make money. They were served a summons from Portfolio Recovery. They signed a payment agreement with the law firm to avoid a judgment. You could stop paying it. If they get a judgment, so what? They can't collect from you. So if you were sued and you entered into a payment agreement, or even if you entered into a payment agreement at all, voluntarily with a creditor, you don't have, and your income's protected, you don't have to continue with that payment agreement. If you need the money for your food and medicine and your heat, and your rent, you can stop paying it. And when you enroll with HELPS, we're going to send a letter to your creditors, including that company who you made an agreement to pay, and let them know that you're not going to pay it anymore. You don't need to worry. I love that. My Wells Fargo bank manager, surprise, told me not to worry. They cannot touch my checking account, even though they have 2 suits against me. He knew the law and volunteered the info. Good for him. A lot of bank managers don't know that law, but he apparently did, which is good. Not all of them do. He's definitely in a minority. I know that because I've been dealing with this for years. Person contacts us from Texas. They're 71. They get $2,200 in Social Security and some wages. They got a payday loan. We went over, this is notes from one of our paralegals. He said, went over what we do. He's received a summons, is concerned about going to court. Doesn't need to go to court. Yeah, if you're sued and your income's protected and you owe the money, even if there's a court date and time on there, if you read it carefully, that's only if you're going to defend the lawsuit. And if you owe the money and they can't do anything to you, there's no need to defend the lawsuit. We sent him a bunch of emails, including lawsuit fears, that explain why he doesn't need to go to court. Called him back on February 6th. And it looks like he stopped making payments around 6 months ago. 2 lawsuits received in the last month. Went over what we did, and he enrolled with HELPS. So he didn't have to deal with the creditors. Person got transferred to us by a company called 720. They had credit card debt, payday loans, buy now, pay later. They're not current, they're behind. Apparently they have a home for a roof on that home, and they had the money coming out of their checking account, but the client doesn't live in the home anymore, so they stopped making payments on it. It's possible that the lender could have a lien on the home. Wouldn't be a mortgage normally, it might be another type of lien, but she doesn't live there, so she doesn't really care about it. And it looks like she enrolled today. Okay, this person calls us. He says he received Social Security and he drives for Uber. Has about 30,000 in credit card debt. Um, just in his name, that he's not behind on. It's a lot of credit card debt. He's got a $30,000 FEMA loan. That's a federal emergency loan on their home. Payments start in 2026 at $250 a month. Mom is 93 years old. And apparently mom put his name on her home. Would Medicare have any claim? No, but if she got onto Medicaid and then she died within so many years, 5 years normally, then they could require that the home be sold and they get paid before the son would get anything. Anyway, we went over his situation. We discussed the protection from the creditors, why he didn't need to worry, sent him a bunch of emails on different topics that he wanted, that he needed. It says here, back in December, he called me or he says he spoke with me sometime in November. And he said he says in December he was considering surrendering his car. Uh, he had bought another vehicle. Would that be okay? Yeah, it is. You can surrender a car. And then he called yesterday, called ready to enroll, and he did enroll. Um, so what about if you have a car payment you can't afford? Yeah, you can let it go back. If there's equity in it, you could sell it, maybe buy another car for cash where you don't have a payment. But if you don't have any equity in it, and you're upside down, you can always choose to let it go back. You don't have to. That's your decision. Sometimes it's obvious that it would make sense to do that, but it depends on the circumstances. So you'd stop making the payment, let it go back. They're eventually going to sell it. They're going to send you a letter saying how much you owe. It's called a deficiency notice. If you're a member of HELPS, you're going to get that information to us. We're going to send a cease and desist letter out to the lender on the car lender so that they leave you alone. You don't need to worry. Person contacts us from Tennessee. They're 65. They get $1,600 in Social Security. He's married, but the debt is only in his name. They're buying a home with a first and second mortgage. They have 2 cars they own outright, 2 lawsuits, and they have some ongoing medical issues that they have to deal with. Overall, he isn't sure where all of his debt is and finds the whole matter confusing. Lots of incoming calls. See, one of the nice things about HELPS is when you enroll with HELPS, you give us the credit of your own money, but if you forget one or learn about one later, you can always send that to us later. Or if a creditor that we send a cease and desist letter to, if they assign it to a new debt collector and you get a new notice 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, you get that information to us. We'll send a new letter out to that new debt collector. And it goes on to say, we explain what we do, and the paralegal explained to her that we don't need all the creditors submitted at once. As he receives the bills, he can send the information to HELPS. Dribble them in. We don't want you to worry. Okay. And he enrolled. So this guy from Tennessee is going to be relieved. So if you have any more questions, you can look at our webpage down below, www.helpsishere.org, and look at more of our videos. You can look at some of our videos on senior living. You're going to be fine. Eric, I saw where people living in an unlimited homestead states will not need umbrella insurance to protect their home, unlike the ones with limited homestead. Well, doesn't the insurance pays you for if your home is uh, destroyed or there's a fire or flood, it pays you for the damage to your home. Now, I guess if you got a loan for $100,000, you theoretically could have less insurance. But the insurance company, whoever the lender who loaned you money on the house, they want to make sure you have enough insurance to pay them what you owe them. So you could cut down on your insurance, I suppose, if the insurance company would let you take out insurance for less than what the value of your home is. Okay, my Wells Fargo card isn't paid, and I have savings, a ready reserve, and checking, and my Social Security checks are in my checking. Does ready reserve allow Wells Fargo to pay my credit card? Technically, under the law, they could. The rule for the banks is that a bank cannot accept money from your account to pay a debt you owe the bank if the money that went to your account came from Social Security. But if you have a savings account, it didn't come from Social Security. Your Social Security went into your checking account, and then you transferred it to your savings account. Now, whether as a practice they're going to do that, I don't know. You know, but you're probably better to keep it out of your savings account. Then it's safe for sure. Um, to protect from creditors. Sure, if you had excess coverage and you've got unlimited homes, if you've got coverage for insurance, you got an unlimited homestead exemption. Yeah, if you got more money, your creditors aren't going to get after it, get at it if there was a loss. Okay. Um, we're winding down here. Person from New York, husband and wife, they each get about 3,000 each. Says he found out about our services and is interested. We went over what we did. It looks like they've been sued and they're concerned about the lawsuit. We explained how their income was protected, and we sent some emails that explained how their Social Security is protected, also protected in the bank account to which it's deposited. And it looks like they enrolled yesterday. Okay. Yeah. So I think I'm going to call it quits for today. Thanks for your good questions. If you have any more, you can put questions in the comments, and I will try to address them there later. You can always call us at 855-435-7787. But if the things we're talking about today apply to you, you don't need to worry. You can always call and talk to HELPS. We'll talk to you about your situation, give you accurate information. We don't want you to worry. So God bless, and I will see you at the same time tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye.